In the year 1050 AD, there was a city in the middle of North America, larger than London, larger than Paris. It had neighborhoods, markets, plazas, a massive pyramid that still stands today, taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza when measured by volume. It had a population of 20,000 people, and then it vanished. Not slowly, not gradually. Within 2 centuries, one of the largest cities in the world simply ceased to exist. No war destroyed it. No plague wiped it out. No flood consumed it. It just stopped. Today, most Americans have never heard of it. It sits quietly in southern Illinois, 12 miles from St. Louis, hidden in plain sight. Its name is Cahokia, and the story of why you don't know about it is almost as strange as the city itself. Let me tell you what Cahokia actually was. At its peak, around 1050 to 1100 AD, Cahokia covered an area of 6 square miles. It contained over 120 earthen mounds. Some were burial mounds, some were platform mounds, bases for temples and palaces, and one was something else entirely. Monks Mound. Named by French monks who settled nearby centuries later, Monks Mound is the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in all of North America. It rises 10 stories high. Its base covers 14 acres, larger than the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza. By volume, it contains more earth than that pyramid contains stone. It took 200 years to build. Generation after generation of workers carrying basket after basket of carefully selected soil to build something that would last forever. Who were these people? We call them the Mississippians. They were a sophisticated Native American civilization that dominated the middle of the continent for centuries. They had a complex social hierarchy, a ruling class, a priestly class, a merchant class. They traded goods across a network that stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the Great Lakes. They grew corn, enough to feed tens of thousands. And at the center of it all was Cahokia, their capital city, their sacred center, the place where earth and sky met. And then it ended. Around 1300 AD, 2.5 centuries after its peak, Cahokia was abandoned. The population dispersed. The wooden buildings rotted. The plazas filled with weeds. And eventually, the memory of the city itself began to fade. When European explorers arrived in North America centuries later, they found earthen mounds scattered across the landscape and had no idea who had built them. Some assumed they were natural hills. Others invented theories. A lost tribe of Israel, refugees from Atlantis, wandering Egyptians. Anything but the obvious answer that the indigenous people of North America had built something extraordinary. So what happened to Cahokia? Researchers have proposed several theories. Climate change. A prolonged drought may have disrupted the agricultural system that fed the city. Political collapse. The rigid social hierarchy that built Cahokia may have eventually generated enough resentment to tear it apart from within. Environmental degradation. The forests around the city were cleared to fuel construction and cooking fires. Without trees, the soil eroded. Without fertile soil, the crops failed. Or perhaps all three at once. The honest answer is, we don't fully know, because so much of Cahokia's story was never written down. But Cahokia wasn't just a city, it was an observatory. Archaeologists excavating the site in the 1960s discovered something they hadn't expected. A series of large wooden posts arranged in precise circles around the central plaza. They called it Woodhenge. And when they mapped the positions of those posts against the movements of the sun, they found something remarkable. On the spring equinox, the sunrise aligns perfectly with Monks Mound as seen from the center of Woodhenge. On the summer solstice, the sunrise aligns with a notch in a ridge of hills to the northeast. These weren't coincidences. The builders of Cahokia were sophisticated astronomers. They tracked the movements of the sun and encoded those movements into the very layout of their city. This is the same thing we find at Stonehenge in England, at the pyramids of Giza, at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Across the ancient world, the same pattern appears again and again. Massive public works, aligned with the heavens, built to mark time and season for an entire civilization. Cahokia is America's version of that pattern, and almost nobody knows it exists. Now, some context. Cahokia is not a controversial discovery. It's not suppressed knowledge. It's an active archaeological site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, studied by researchers for decades. The reason most Americans don't know about it isn't a conspiracy. It's something more ordinary and more troubling. For most of American history, the intellectual framework for understanding the continent's past simply didn't make room for sophisticated indigenous civilizations. The idea that North America before European contact was a landscape of small, simple communities, that framework shaped what got studied, what got taught, and what got remembered. Cahokia didn't fit, so it didn't get included. This is changing slowly, but it's changing. The story of Cahokia is now being told in museums, in academic papers, in documentaries. But there is still a gap between what researchers know and what the general public knows. And that gap is exactly why we're here. Here's what I keep thinking about. Cahokia is 12 miles from St. Louis. 12 miles. Every day, millions of people drive past on Interstate 55 and Interstate 70 without knowing that just off the highway, hidden behind a casino and a strip mall, sits one of the most significant archaeological sites in North America. A city that was, at its peak, one of the largest urban centers on the planet. We talk about the great ancient cities, Rome, Constantinople, Baghdad, Chang'an. Cahokia belongs in that conversation. And there's something else. The fact that we forgot Cahokia, the fact that an entire civilization can vanish so completely that the people living 12 miles away don't know it existed, that should give us pause. Because Cahokia is not the only example. Across the Americas, there are sites we've barely begun to excavate. There are civilizations we've barely begun to understand. There are stories written in earth and stone that we haven't learned to read yet. Cahokia is a reminder that human history is larger than we think, more complex, more surprising, more humbling. The question isn't just why Cahokia disappeared. The question is what else we've forgotten, and whether we're paying enough attention to find it before it disappears completely. A city larger than medieval London, 12 miles from St. Louis, and almost nobody knows it existed. What do you think we've forgotten? Drop your theory in the comments. Like, subscribe, and stay curious. The Lithic Code. The next code is already waiting.